Okay then, it is now finally time to make these videos. So sorry, I meant to do them yesterday, Tuesday. But to be honest, Monday, doing the two classes back to back for the first time in a while, and then as much as we talked in this class, holy crap, when I got home Monday, my voice was pretty much gone. And yesterday I had 3 kids tutoring back to back to back, all math. So that took a lot of talking, and I just didn't have it in me anymore. So now, super early on, what is this, Wednesday morning, as you can tell, super early. You will probably see the sun start to rise at some point while I'm doing this. If I'm lucky and I can stop talking so much, then maybe I'll get this one done, and then in chapter 22, you'll see the sunrise. But anyway, I'm like knocking these suckers out like this so I can get them posted today. So my apologies for making you wait, for those, who actually may possibly watch this. Otherwise, that's it. And I just have to say it was so much fun getting to meet everybody. I don't know. I know it's a crazy time, but I do like that. I do like getting to see everybody in person. So here we go. Breathing and lungs and stuff, always so much worse first thing in the morning. Even though I've been awake for, what is it? I have been awake for, it's getting close to 3 hours now, but my lungs are still waking up. So, here we go. More than a third of American adults are obese. Hi, I'm one of those. Obesity epidemic. It's pretty bad. A lot of it has to do with jobs where you just sit. And as you know, this part is driving me nuts because that's what I feel like all I do now is just sit, because I can't pace while doing this. And now that you've seen me in class, you know that I move like always. Anyway, inactive lifestyle, so people who just sit there and play games and just watch TV, that kind of thing. All of this has actually contributed to higher rates of heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and other weight-related health problems. Yes, I did say cancer, because that's actually more prevalent in obese people. Current pandemic, anyone even remotely overweight tends to be more at risk, because excess weight, it has nothing to do with loving your own body. It has to do with the actual health sides. But next week when we're doing the energy budget lab, I talk all about this, the weight, everything. So more than 300,000 deaths per year in the US are attributed to weight-related issues. Despite the need for reliable methods to shed pounds, only about 5% of dieters are able to actually reach their goal weight and maintain it for long term. This is because of a lot of the myths and misunderstandings about this. We have a bunch of fad diets, like fly-by-night kind of stuff, and that makes it difficult to see if it actually works. And then if you think about your own diet, and I don't mean diet as in I am only going to eat 1,200 calories or I'm only going to eat 800 calories. I mean diet as in what you consume throughout the day, typically. As you look at that, you should start basically thinking about the structure and function of your digestive system. So start thinking about why stuff is the way it is. And I got distracted because on that side it's still very dark, but over here I'm beginning to see a little bit of light. So yes, the sun's working on coming out. So, is there a scientific approach to weight loss? There actually is, just so you know. Big picture. Well, big ideas anyway. Obtaining, processing food, human digestive system, and nutrition. So first we're going to talk about obtaining and processing. So this is basically eating. We have herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores. Herbivore eats plants. That's it, just plants. So they give the example of cattle, gorillas, sea urchins, and snails. You don't tend to think of sea urchins and snails when you think of herbivores, but it's true, they don't eat other fish. So there you go. Carnivores eat meat. Lions, owls, whales, spiders. You do not ever see a lion munching on a head of lettuce. That's not normal. I'm like this for them including whales because most whales, yes, but there are filter feeders. And so it makes me wonder, I guess plankton technically is an animal, so yeah, I guess they are. I guess they are carnivores. How about that? I never thought about that. And then we have omnivores. That would be humans. Omnivores eat plants and other animals. So we've got humans, roaches, raccoons, and crows. Ew, roaches. Gross. I don't like roaches. They freak me out, they're gross, and I'm allergic to them. Now, animals also can be suspension feeders, substrate feeders, fluid feeders, and bulk feeders. Suspension feeder, and we're going to see pictures of a bunch of these. Suspension means they capture the food particles from the surrounding area, well, the surrounding medium. Substrate feeders eat on what they live on. So think of a caterpillar. Caterpillar's walking along on the leaf, but it's also munching on the leaf. Fluid feeders, hummingbird, think of that. And then bulk feeders, ingest large pieces of food. The previous textbook had, or the previous edition of this textbook for bulk feeders had a picture of a great white munching. And I don't know, I liked that, but I like sharks, so. Checkpoint question. Red pandas, like the one on the cover of your textbook. Much large quantities of bamboo. So they go munch, munch, munch on a whole lot of bamboo. But they also eat small mammals, birds, eggs, and berries. So if they eat a lot of bamboo, but also eat some mammals, birds, eggs, and berries, what would they count as? Did I not answer the question? I didn't. What do you think they would count as? Omnivores. Hopefully you know that. Can't believe I forgot to put that in there. All right, here we have a suspension feeder. This is a manta ray. Notice he has no teeth. So he just goes and absorbs everything as it comes through. So the filter feeders would be suspension feeder. Substrate feeder, like I said, caterpillar. And isn't this nice to show us that it's just pooping as it goes along? Fluid feeder. Well, mosquito, because, well, it is eating just, fluid. And here you go, handy tip. Maybe you already know this, maybe you don't, but you will after listening to this. Did you know it is only the female mosquito that bites you and sucks your blood? Just the female. The male mosquito can't do it. Doesn't have the proboscis, the part that he sticks into your arm. So anytime it lands on you and you see it, you're like, that's a girl. You just squished her. Not a bad thing because then you can keep from having yet more. Bulk feeder, gray heron preparing to swallow a fish. You don't see the bird sitting there taking little dainty bites and chewing. It just goes and gulps it down. So that's how you know it's a bulk feeder. And wow, I really just made a sound effect. Oops. Okay, food processed in 4 stages. We have ingestion, digestion, absorption, and elimination. So ingestion, that's the process of putting it in your mouth. Digestion, it's what is happening here. Digestion starts in your mouth with your saliva because it's an enzyme that helps break it down. And then it comes all the way down, and I realize we are about to talk about this in more detail. But anyway, ingestion is the process of putting it in. Digestion is all of this, where it's all breaking it down so it can take everything it needs from it. Then as it leaves your stomach, that's where the absorption takes place. That's where it's absorbing all the nutrients and everything. And then elimination is what it lets out when you're done. Chemical digestion is necessary because animals cannot directly use proteins, carbohydrates, fats, and nucleic acids in foods. That means our body does not just go, hey, here you go, and take the protein as is. Your body has to break it down and readjust it basically for what it needs. So checkpoint question, what are the 2 types of digestion that take place in your mouth? Hint, chemical is one of them. There you go, mechanical and chemical. The chemical is what I was talking about with the saliva mixing the enzymes to break it down. So that's chemistry in action. Mechanical is literally that's the mechanics. So it's working like a machine. Can your body break stuff down without you chewing it up? Yes. However, you normally take a small enough bite first, and you have to know that it's kind of natural for you to chew. It's the way we're designed, and that's why it's because we need to break it up a little bit. So that's our mechanical. Aw, kitten. So ingestion is going in, so IN, ingestion. We have our mechanical, so that's the munching, munching, munching. And then we have our digestion that's taking place through all of this, because as soon as the enzymes start to mix, that's our chemical digestion starting. We have the pieces of food, we've got the body mixing stuff up, throwing things together to do what it needs to. And then absorption, when it gets to our intestines, our large and small intestines. I guess technically I should say our small and large intestines. But anyway, once it hits the intestines, that's where it can start pulling the nutrients out, which is absorption, and then elimination. So anything that was not digested because we just didn't eat it, or you can't digest it, like high fiber, that's what comes out. So what happens here is with the chemical digestion, we're showing examples here of how it breaks it down. First one is showing you the protein. So we've got the chain of protein. If you remember, the chain of protein is made of a chain of amino acids, polypeptide bonds. So what happens is the protein digesting enzymes pretty much break apart the bonds, and it turns your protein into individual amino acids, and then your body can take those amino acids to build their own proteins. I know that sounds kind of odd to take a protein and break it apart to make other proteins, and here comes the geek factor. If you like Legos, and I love Legos, and say that instead of getting a kit of Legos, somebody gave me like a Lego house, but I wanted to build, I don't know, a Lego tree. Then I would have to take apart the Lego house, and then I could build my tree. I still use all the parts from the house to make my tree, but I had to take it apart first. That's pretty much what our body's doing. So it breaks apart the protein so it can build the specific protein we want. Same thing happens with the carbs. So if you remember carbohydrates, it can be simple sugars, or it can be the, why am I messing this up? Not really simple sugars, but the more complex sugars, or it can be the really complex. So like starch would be your polysaccharides. Then you have your carb digesting enzymes that break it up into simple sugars, the monosaccharides, at which point your body can then again rebuild it to exactly what it needs. And in Bio 1, 2, 3, we covered this when we talked about photosynthesis and aerobic respiration and stuff. That's when we talked about that. All right, nucleic acid. Take it in, your body breaks it down, has all these nucleotides. We need the nucleotides because when we are replicating our cells, we have to rebuild the DNA. For the DNA, we need our nucleotides. And then, of course, the fats. I know a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, fat's bad. Okay, overabundance of fat, not good. Trans fats, horrible. Saturated fats, not good. Unsaturated fats, good. Your body needs some of these fats. If you remember, we have, there are essential fatty acids, which, oh yeah, I think we get to that in this chapter. But there's essential fatty acids that your body has to have, because your body, when it says it's essential, it means your body needs it, but it cannot produce it. So you have to get it from an outside source. So this bottom one for the fat digesting enzymes is showing you how you take it in, and then your body uses it the way it needs. Yeah, it's because as I was talking, I realized I think we cover it in here, so I should not keep doing it. All right, so our digestion occurs in very specialized compartments. We don't stick a carrot in our ear and have it work. So all of the bodies, whether it's a plant or an animal, are designed very specifically for food. Plants, photosynthesis, they make it themselves, nice and simple. Animals, we're not making our own food. We are not autotrophs. We are heterotrophs. So we need to obtain our food. And so we have to have special ways to get our food. So here we go. It talks about cnidarians and flatworms. They have a gastrovascular cavity with a single mouth, or a single opening, which is the mouth, a single mouth. Geez, can you imagine how freaky it would be if a lot of things had multiple mouths? That would be scary. Most animals have an alimentary canal, runs from the mouth to the anus with specialized regions along the way. So for us, that would be basically going from our mouth straight on through. We're going to have pictures. And then, anus just means the other end. Here you go. So, checkpoint question. What is an advantage of an alimentary canal compared to a gastrovascular cavity? Can you think of a difference between a canal versus a cavity? Right here. The canal specialized regions that carry out the digestion and absorption sequentially. That means, like we said before, you start with your mouth, you're chewing it up, it's mixing the enzymes as you're chewing it, starts to dissolve stuff, and then as it's going down here, everything's happening in its own specialized time. It gets to the stomach, it finishes digesting it, it finishes throwing all those chemicals in there to break it down. So none of it is wasted. It turns it into its little soup, basically. So when it goes out of the stomach and then in towards your intestines, it can just absorb what it needs because all of the breakdown has already occurred. For the cavity, it's just like all there. So it's all just one big thing. Dun, dun, dun. There we go. So we are looking at an earthworm versus a grasshopper versus a bird. Everybody has something a little bit different. Notice, however, though, that the worm, the grasshopper, and the bird all have something called a crop. The crop helps break things down. What I also find interesting is the earthworm and the bird both also have a gizzard, but the grasshopper does not have a gizzard. I do not see intestines on the grasshopper either. And so this would make you believe, I would think, that the grasshopper is a little more basic. How about that? The bird's actually kind of interesting. The crop is there to help break things up. And then the gizzard helps grind it up a little bit more. And so, I don't know. I'm looking at this just thinking evolutionary wise, and I think it's really interesting to compare that earthworm to that bird. But, that's just me. I will move on because this is a longer PowerPoint. The other two, short in comparison. All right, human digestive system. We're to people now. So in humans, the food is ingested and chewed in the mouth or the oral cavity. Oral cavity because it's just a big gaping hole. And then pushed by the tongue into the pharynx, which is here. Moved along through the canal by the rhythmic muscle contractions of the peristalsis. And moved in and out of the stomach by sphincters. Sphincters are these things, it's like perfect little hole. Pinch tight, so it opens and then closes. I had a teacher who once used a balloon as an example, because if you've ever tied a knot in a balloon, you've seen about what the sphincter looks like. The sphincters are designed to open only from one direction, so when it comes through here, it forces it open, but then it closes, so this doesn't shove back up that way. Kind of helps move things the direction they're supposed to go. Final steps of digestion and nutrient absorption in humans occurs in the small intestines. So it enters the small intestines and starts, it's finishing getting broken down, but then also beginning to get, it's also absorbing all of your nutrients, getting what you need. Anything that is undigested will move slowly through the large intestines and then you poop it out. So here you go. This shows, I have more coughs coming. Trying not to. Okay, so this one's showing the woman taking a bite out of her apple. So that is our oral cavity. takes the bite. Mechanical digestion, because she's biting it and she's chewing it to break it up. While she's chewing it up, she's mixing it up using her teeth and her tongue, and then the salivary glands here is kicking out the enzymes to help break it down. The fact that that is the first step of your chemical digestion is the reason why if you smell something, and I think we get to this when we talk more about the brain later, assuming this textbook goes into the brain to that degree. You smell something that smells really good, or you're thinking about your favorite food and your mouth starts to water. It's because your salivary glands are anticipating the food, so they're kind of kicking in gear, ready to start dissolving it. Anyway, mix it all up, turns into things called chyme. We're about to get to it, and it slides on down here. It's basically these little muscles working to just push all the way down. You have this thing called the epiglottis, because I think you know this. I should totally do my laser pointer. Okay, the pharynx, that is also part with, like right here. The pharynx right here, and we have our esophagus, which is the whole tube. The pharynx, there's this little thing called the epiglottis, which we're gonna look at in a moment, and that's that little flap. So if you have ever had it where you say, oh my gosh, the food went down the wrong way, or I was drinking and it went down the wrong pipe, that's just the epiglottis, because the epiglottis is supposed to go boop when you're swallowing and this when you're breathing. So that's all that is. And I know I just keep saying it and we're coming to it. I know I'm like all out of order, but it's early and I just like the word epiglottis. I don't know why, but I love the word epiglottis. It's just entertaining. Okay, so our food goes down the esophagus. Now, it points out that the liver is part of the human digestive system and the gallbladder and the pancreas. Well, it is, because what's happening is the liver is helping to produce bile and the gallbladder is holding the excess bile, because bile is what helps emulsify fats. This is why if you know of anyone who has their gallbladder removed, they are told they can't have fatty foods. You're not supposed to have fried foods. It's because your body can't kick it in enough to throw enough bile right off the bat to emulsify these. Anyway, then we have our small intestines, which is where it's finishing up the chemical digestion and it's doing the absorption. Then we have our large intestines, which is where all of your undigested waste is going to and just kind of hanging out and waiting. And then the anus, I think you already know, that's right there at your butt. It's your exit hole. There you go. And so we have a sphincter at the top of the stomach, sphincter at the bottom of the stomach. That way it holds everything in here until it's time to pass it on. Mechanical digestion and chemical digestion begin in the mouth. I've already told you this, because you're chewing, you're smashing, you're grinding. The tongue, you're tasting it, but it's also moving stuff around. If you've ever paid attention when you are chewing, and if you haven't, I'm so sorry, because you're about to. Because after you read this, you hear it, whatever you're going to, the next time you eat, go, am I really doing that? You will notice every time when you're swallowing, it feels like a ball. That's why sometimes if you've ever been trying to eat something and then you see something that makes you sad, or you're trying not to cry, or you get really upset and you're tensed up, it feels like a marble stuck in your throat. That's why. It's because the way your body works, what your tongue is doing, it's moving everything around, making it to this little ball so it can just go whew, all the way down. And then that moves it towards the pharynx. Showing you your oral cavity, your teeth. We have lots of teeth. You have your incisors, you have your canines. Yes, the canines are the ones that look like doggy teeth or vampire teeth. Then you have your premolars and your molars. Your molars are the big fat suckers in the back. The premolars are the ones that look like a hybrid between the back teeth and the front teeth. Some people have wisdom teeth, but very few people do. Most people have to have them removed. And this is something on the evolutionary track that is disappearing because not as many people even have wisdom teeth anymore. Then, of course, your tongue, that's part of it. And they're showing you right here the opening of salivary gland duct. So this is where some of your saliva comes from. So the pharynx or throat opens in two passageways. We have the esophagus and we have the trachea. So the esophagus is part of your digestive system. This is the one why, and I talk about this when we do our lab, this is why if you know of anyone who is bulimic, one of the big dangers for that, other than obviously lack of nutrition, is the amount of stomach acid, bile and stuff in your stomach when you throw up. It's throwing this something acidic up your esophagus, and it can actually eat holes through the entire esophagus. It's the reason why if you're sick, you're nauseous, you're throwing up, you need to make sure to rinse and drink water, not just the hydration part, but also to help soothe the throat, because it really can actually eat through your esophagus. It can also eat your teeth up because acidic things not so good for you. All right, and then the trachea is the windpipe. This is part of your respiratory system. It all is right along here. Look at that. I've already answered this question. The checkpoint question, what's happening in the trachea when food goes down the wrong pipe? Well, there's the epiglottis that I just talked about earlier. It's because a little bit of food or water accidentally gets in there because the epiglottis didn't close properly. And that is what makes you go because your lungs don't want the food or the liquid in them, and so it's causing you to try to cough it out. So here's showing you your human swallowing reflex. Chew it up, you've got the bolus of food, and it goes shoo, and it comes on down, and it's just showing this movement. What I normally tell people to do, if you really want to kind of understand it, is next time you're eating, just do this. If you just hold your hand like this when you swallow, you can even do it now and just go. You can actually feel that wave of muscle move, and I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, if you hold it like that, you feel it even more. So seriously, just do that and then swallow, and it's kind of cool because you feel woo. You can feel every bit of it, and to me, that's a lot better than a picture. But I guess they can't exactly put in a textbook. So now all you have to do is, but I can do that on the video because I don't know if you know this. I kind of assume most people don't watch the whole video and you're not really listening to it anyway. And that might be because I don't watch a lot of videos and I mute pretty much everything. My phone stays on silent. My computer stays on silent. So it's kind of easy for me to pretend you don't really listen anyway. Yeah, there you go. Sure as heck explains why I talk the way I do, doesn't it? So this is just reminding you that when you're swallowing, it's contracting, it's pushing that bit of food all the way down, and then it lands into your stomach, and then that's where it's continuing to get ground up. Fun fact about the giraffe. I kept waiting for this fun fact to pop up on Monday when I was doing the lecture because I remembered putting it in a PowerPoint. Didn't realize it was the next PowerPoint, but I find this interesting. So giraffe has that huge long neck, 6-foot neck. However, humans and giraffes have exactly the same number of vertebrae in their neck. They don't have more. It's just theirs are like, and ours are like, deep. But humans and giraffes both have 7 neck vertebrae. This is the reason why with the giraffe having that huge neck, they don't move it around like a snake. If you ever watch, they move their head exactly the way we do because they have the same motion. It's just since the vertebrae are so huge, we can see the movement more. And I don't know, I just think it's kind of cool. I used to, when I lived in South Georgia, there's a place called Wild Adventures, and it's like an amusement park and a wildlife park in one. They have an area of giraffes, and you walk down this huge long thing, and then they have like a platform, and you can pay to feed the giraffes and stuff like that. Of course I did. I used to go there and tell people about giraffes. And I would tell them about the neck vertebrae and all of these things. And then people would assume I worked there. And then it was kind of embarrassing when I had to admit, no, I don't work here. I just randomly stand here and spout facts. I've also done that at the Georgia Aquarium. So, yeah. I know that's kind of stupid and almost embarrassing, but I find it all interesting and I like to share what I know. Okay, the Heimlich maneuver. This is what you're supposed to do when somebody is choking. It causes you to push the stuff out. They contract here because that's pushing into the lungs, which forces the air out, which forces it to shoot out. And since the trachea and the esophagus, all of this is connected right here. If you push hard enough, then it can cause the air, and then the air is supposed to help push the lodged food out of the throat. Brain damage or death will occur within minutes if there is no airway open. That's why you have to make that airway get open. During the Heimlich maneuver, what causes food to dislodge from the throat? Well, I just said it. It's the pressure of air being pushed out of the lungs. Now, here's the thing. Most people don't know how to do the Heimlich maneuver. And for an adult, you are supposed to wrap around behind them and then put your hands right here, and because you're trying to hit the lungs. But for a toddler or a baby, you can't do that because you're more likely to break them. So if anyone's ever been at a restaurant, they actually have a poster on the wall of every single restaurant. And it shows you the adult and the child way. And the child, the baby, you flip them over and you smack them on the back. Same kind of thing. I'm obsessive about words and I have to read them. I always have. If there's a poster, I have read it. If there are words on your shirt, I have read them. I don't know why. I can't not read things that are listed. So this paid off because I still remember this when my oldest was about 2.5 years old. We were at a Japanese restaurant and he's running around while we're waiting for our seat and he's munching on, I don't know, M&Ms or something. I just remember it was a little candy. And he started to choke. And it was absolutely terrifying. But since I had read those posters so many times, I honestly didn't even think too much about it. I yanked him up, flipped him upside down, and went pow, pow. And it worked because that piece of candy shot straight out of his mouth. And then he goes, and oh my gosh, my heart was racing. That was absolutely terrifying. But it's a good thing to understand because it happens. It just straight up happens. And to say, well, you shouldn't let your kid have a piece of candy while they're walking around, dude, get a kid. They're going to have something in their mouth pretty much more times than not, even if you don't give it to them. They will walk around and they will find something under a chair. It's kind of terrifying, but so just know how to take care of it. This is my bottle of water that I drink all the time. All right, stomach stores food and breaks it down with acid and enzymes. That's the big thing to remember, is that your stomach is not actually absorbing the nutrients. Your stomach is digesting it. It's like a storage facility. So your stomach is there to hold the food while it throws the other junk in there and help break it all down. Yeah, there you go. I mean, this is telling you about the different parts in there, but pretty much already talked about it. So again, the food comes down, goes into your stomach, it's processing, it's throwing out the acids and everything to break it up. It goes through the sphincter into the small intestines. The inside of your stomach has all these tiny little pits, these pores. This is where it's making all of the stuff. So you see you've got your gastric glands and the mucus cells. Epithelium, we talked about this on Monday. So we have the mucus, the hydrochloric acid, that's what HCl is, and the pepsidogen, and that's the stuff that's all breaking everything down. So there you go. Checkpoint question. If you add pepsidogen to a test tube containing protein dissolved in distilled water, not much protein will be digested. What inorganic chemical could you add to the tube to accelerate protein digestion? And what effect will it have? Pretty sure we just talked about all of this. There you go. Acid. You have to have the acid because that's what kicks it in gear and makes it work. Yeah, there you go. That's how it will break that protein down into individual amino acids so your body can use it the way it needs to. Now, while you have to have this acid in your stomach to break things down, sometimes it gets out of control. That's where we have what's known as GERD. Esophageal, whatever, reflux disease. That's what GERD stands for. This ends up giving you heartburn. So when you have acid reflux, it is the stomach acid popping up. I was going to say something about a percolator, but I realize most people probably don't know what a percolator is. So I will skip right past that whole analogy. What happens here if you have GERD or you have acid reflux is your stomach has pumped out this acid, but then there's not enough to digest it, or it's already too acidic, so the acid's kind of bubbling. Think of if you drink a lot of coffee on an empty stomach. Coffee is very acidic, so if you're adding acid to an acid stomach, it's like that's why some people, if they drink coffee first thing in the morning, they're like, oh, and they have that little bit of heartburn. What's funny is I go, oh, I've never had heartburn. I thought I did, but it turns out what I was attributing to heartburn is the warning sign of one of my anxiety attacks coming. So I've never had just heartburn. But in Bio 123, when we talked about the pH scale, and we talked acid versus base, and we talked about if you were having acid reflux or an upset stomach, that's why you have milk of magnesia or like Tums, because that is a base, and so it's trying to balance each other out. It's trying to settle down the acid. That's what that is. If you have GERD, it's happening a lot, and so it starts to damage the lining of the esophagus, at which point you need to adjust your diet to bring it down. My sister, she had acid reflux to such a bad degree, she just never, I don't know why, it just never occurred to her, it was not normal to always feel this way, that it continued and it actually got all the way up to her sinus cavities. And it wasn't until she went to a specialist and found out it was not just a sinus infection, because she ended up with full-fledged vertigo and everything. She had to take special medication and adjust her diet, had to get rid of basically her favorite foods. And once she stopped having chocolate, peanut butter, red wine, tomatoes, and then also made sure to always, always, always have a green vegetable with her meal. When she did that, it brought everything down, and then she was okay. But as soon as she had too much like tomato sauce or a Reese peanut butter cup, it would flare right up. So she had to completely change how she ate, and then it got better. Now we have open sores in the lining of the stomach called gastric ulcers. Sometimes that can form an ulcer, not so good. Then we also have bacterial infections in the stomach and the duodenum. Duodenum is the little sphincter part that goes from the stomach to the intestines. And these can also produce ulcers. Ulcers are not good. It's tiny little holes. Not fun. So they have figured out that the H. pylori is pretty much a bacterial infection. I'm going to hold off on saying something specific until I get to the next one or two slides to see if they talk about it. Otherwise, I'm going to totally tell you about it. So what they did is they checked people out on this one, sampled stomach bacteria. So they looked at the different bacterias in the stomachs. When they saw this one, that was way up here. These were the people who were infected with H. pylori. Interesting. So they were showing that it was bacterial. We'll do this and then go one more And then if I haven't gotten there, I'm going to come back to the stomach ulcer thing. Contrast to most microbes, the species that causes ulcers thrives in an environment with very low pH. So a more basic. Or would that be acidic? I always confuse my numbers. That's why I'm like, I'm trying to remember that pH scale. Okay, so they didn't get to it here. So I'm going to talk about it here real quick. The stomach ulcer stuff. Guys ended up getting Nobel Prizes, and I really swear I think it's in one of these PowerPoints. But this dude was like, okay, I'm pretty sure that the ulcer is actually caused from a bacteria. So what he did is he actually purposely infected himself, gave himself the stomach ulcers, so he could take this antibiotic and cure the ulcer just to prove that this is what it really was. So the dude gave himself ulcers on purpose in order to treat himself to prove his point. I was like, holy crap. I can't imagine purposely giving myself something just to prove a point. But yeah, pretty cool. Anyway, enzymes from the pancreas and cells of the intestinal wall digest food molecules. So again, your body is kicking out the chemicals for this chemical digestion. I already talked about the bile. The liver makes the bile and then stores it in the gallbladder. Emulsifies fat. There you go. Already talked about it. Folds of the intestinal lining and finger-like villi increase the area across which absorbed nutrients move into capillaries and lymph vessels. So it's a villi. It's these little finger-like things. This is also where the gluten issue comes into play. So your intestines are lined up with these little structures. I always say hair-like structures, but they're saying finger-like, so I'm just going to keep saying finger-like. But imagine you have these things like this all the way around your intestines. This is where they're absorbing your nutrients. This is where it's helping finish doing everything, breaking it down, part of the chemical digestion. Now, for someone with celiac disease means your body literally cannot break down gluten. It's different than someone who is gluten sensitive, and it's different than someone who just says, I can't have gluten. It's a pet peeve of mine for people to say, I can't have something, but not understand it, because gluten is very misunderstood, and so many different parts. I'm going to tell you a few different things about it right now. My cousin Francine, she has celiac. She also has PCOS and a whole bunch of other things, but we're just going to talk about the celiac aspect. And so through her, I've actually gotten to see what it's like. And because of her, I have educated myself a lot more on the whole gluten issue. When she eats stuff that has gluten, what happens is the gluten kind of gums up these little hair-like structures. So these things, they're like this. They're just like la, 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 la. And so it's helping doing the transferring of stuff. It's breaking things down. It's absorbing. And this is perfectly normal. So you have this, and then someone with celiac has some gluten, and then this is what starts to happen. And then they have some more gluten, and then some more gluten. And then it's like basically gumming it down until these little things are now like this. They can't do their job. If they have one thing of gluten, it goes like this. And then they're really, really good on their diet, and then they heal and they come back like that. My cousin, however, she knows she can't process gluten. She is literally, she has celiac disease, which means her body cannot do it. But she's one of those people, and she'll be like, I'm living on the edge, as she eats an entire thing of churros, or she eats bread, or she decides she wants dinner rolls, or she routinely eats stuff she should not eat. And then she's in a lot of pain, and I've watched her. You can see her body start to swell. I've seen her behind the wheel of the car, back when things were open. We would go to a restaurant sometimes. I would see her eat stuff she's not supposed to. And she'll be driving and she will be inflating, and then her stomach is hitting the wheel and she's like this, very uncomfortable, because she has squished these poor little villi down, and the body can't process, and so you have that buildup of gas in the intestines. So it's literally the worst gas attack of your entire life. It's just filling and filling and filling with gas, and it won't come out. Until eventually, yes, it does come out, and then, whoo, that's a whole different story. But that's what's happening. Now, if she has a little bit of gluten and it kind of gums it up, and then she perfect diet, they start to come back up because everything's working enough to take that squish off. But if you consistently eat what it can't handle, it eventually just kills them and you can't repair the damage. So that's what's going on with the gluten. Now, here's the interesting thing. It turns out it's not just that. It turns out there's these little extra parts in our gut. If you remember, I don't know how many chapters ago, talked about how much bacteria is in our body that's keeping us going. There's something in there that helps process the gluten. And there were these studies done a couple of years ago. I want to say France. I really don't remember. I'd have to look the whole thing up again. But they found that there's this one particular something in a lot of dirt that when they put it in capsule form, they gave it to the study group. These people, they basically put the stuff back in the person's gut, and it proliferated. It was nice and happy in the gut, super happy gut, and they were able to process gluten again. At the end of the experiment, the people were told, hey, this is what was in that capsule, and you now have this living inside your intestines. Some people opted to take medicine to remove it again, and then they went back to their gluten-free diet. Other people decided to keep it because now they could actually not have to worry as much. I found that very interesting because we have over-sanitized so much. We have accidentally killed a lot of the stuff that helped our body process what it processes. That's a totally different beast though. But celiac disease seriously means it is not possible for that poor body to process gluten. Gluten sensitive means that it gives you a little bit of a reaction, so you want to be careful. Now, when I said I get annoyed at people who say they can't have gluten, but they have no clue what they're talking about, it's my friend Jake. A couple of years ago, he told me he had to cut out gluten because he can't process gluten. And I asked him a few very important questions, like, do you drink beer? And he said, yes. If you drink beer, you can have gluten because beer is literally made from wheat, which is where you get gluten. So if you're going to try to say you can't have gluten, make sure you understand what all gluten is in. You can't have soy sauce either if you can't have gluten. I mean, it is huge. You can't have Twizzlers. Twizzlers. I was very upset with that. I love Twizzlers, so I'm glad I'm okay. There's also gluten in makeup. Certain makeups contain gluten, and so if you really can't have gluten, you have to be so insanely careful. Normally somebody says, oh, I feel so much better since I've cut out gluten. In reality, it's not because you cut out gluten, it's because there's other stuff that tends to go with gluten in most processed foods. If you just simply ate a healthier diet, like a less processed diet, you would probably be fine. So anyway, that's that PSA from Linda. Whoa, come on. My little thingy's not working. I think I was inactive for too long. Or did my battery die? I think oh, no, there we go. Yay, it's working again. So, enzymatic digestion in the small intestines. This is just showing you how the breakdown goes. It's just showing you the different enzymes that are breaking things down. So you're going from polysaccharides to monosaccharides. We've got the proteins that are polypeptides to amino acids, that kind of thing. But we already talked about this earlier. Already talked about this. The liver's creating the bile. The bile's held in the gallbladder. The gallbladder tosses it out there to help break down the fats, that kind of thing. Just showing you it then goes throughout your small intestines. It's breaking it down, absorbing everything, and spreading it out to the body. At what point do food molecules actually enter the body's cells? Well, absorption. That's all there is to it. It's in the small intestines. Blood from the digestive tract drains into the hepatic portal vein and then into the liver. Liver regulates nutrient levels in the blood, detoxifies alcohols and drugs, and synthesizes blood proteins. We talked about this in chapter 5 of Bio 1, 2, 3 when we talked about alcohol and how toxic it is and everything. The liver and your kidneys are there to help clean your blood. And so that's what it's talking about for that part. The liver is also what is used for breaking down drugs and toxins and stuff like that. And so that's the liver, horribly important. You have to have a liver. The cool thing about the liver, though, is it is the only organ you can actually donate as a living donor, and it will regrow. So if you are on the list to donate a liver, or you know somebody who needs one and you're a match, they take a piece of your liver, put it in there, and then that grows to a full liver for the recipient, assuming their body accepts it, and the liver that you have heals itself. It's really cool. The liver is phenomenal. Okay, between which two body systems does the liver act as a go-between? Well, there you go. Processes the blood received from the digestive system and releases it into the circulatory system. So it is a bridge between the digestive system and the circulatory system. So again, liver, very important. Oh, and that's also why the liver is so high in iron, by the way. So anyone who eats chicken livers or beef liver, if you've ever had a parent who says you need it because it's high in iron, that's the reason right there. And if you're low in iron, you tend to be more exhausted, lethargic, not as much energy. And for some reason, I still don't know this, people who chew ice, that is one of the warning signs that you are low in iron, and I don't understand that. I don't eat meat at all, and my iron count is normally through the roof. And I only say this because most people have an assumption that if you're a vegetarian that you are low in iron, because every time I've had my blood tested, because I've tried to donate blood like a million times, and they do that little fingerprint to see, or that finger prick to check, every single time when I say vegetarian, they're like, and then they do that, and I can see that they're about to start lecturing me on the importance of iron, and then they always go, and then they ask if I have a lot of energy, because my iron count is through the friggin' roof every time. But you've now met me. Yes, I am kind of full of energy. That's, that's just me. So, large intestines has a pouch called the cecum near its junction with the small intestines, and this has a finger-like extension, which is the appendix, which we've talked about before being a vestigial organ. Some bacteria in the colon produce vitamins, so yay, that's where we get some of what we need. The large intestines absorbs the vitamins and water in the bloodstream and helps form firm feces, so this is where your poop comes in, and then stored in the rectum until elimination, which means until it's kicked out. We talked about this in class on Monday. Diarrhea happens when too little water is reclaimed, and constipation occurs when too much water is reclaimed. So the reason before it says it's held there until it's firm, because it's supposed to be solid, not rock hard, not pellets. If you are pooping pellets, it means you need more water. It's just, your intestines are absorbing too much water. And if it is like, and I am so sorry, this is how I described it when my kids were little. I said, if it's like you're peeing out of your butt, that means your body is not absorbing enough water. And a lot of times you are losing a lot of the nutrients at the same time, because if it's that loose, that means your body has not had time to pull out of everything that it needs. So, explain why treatment with antibiotics for an extended period may cause a vitamin K deficiency. How are you supposed to answer this? We haven't even talked about vitamin K. Anyway, antibiotics may kill the bacteria that synthesize vitamin K in the colon. When you take antibiotics, it's not picky. It's not only going after one type of bacteria. It's going after all of them. Um, I think it's later this quarter that we talk about the different types of species curves, like the R and the S and stuff like that. And we'll talk about why is that word not coming to my head? Opportunistic, that's the word. Yay, I got it. Which is funny because I was thinking it started with a P and it so doesn't. But anyway, opportunistic species means they're kept in check until basically the gatekeeper is gone, and then poof, they proliferate like crazy. So that's what happens when you take an antibiotic and it kills off all of the good bacteria in your body. The yeast that's in your body explodes. This is why so many people end up with a yeast infection after taking antibiotics. And yeast infection is not just for women. Men get it as well. It's just it will show up in a slightly different way. So if you're taking antibiotics and then you are just craving so many sugary foods, you want bread, you want sweets, you want sugar, you want chocolate, you want candy, you want pie, it's because the yeast, that's what it wants. It wants to be fed all the sugars. And that's why you start consuming it, is because you're feeding the yeast in your body and it just keeps getting out of control. Then you end up gaining weight. Sometimes your skin breaks out. Some people get dandruff. All of this is because the yeast is out of control because you killed off all the bacteria. So, smartest thing to do is whenever you are taking antibiotics, make sure to be replacing the good bacteria. So that's why you have probiotics. If you take antibiotics and consume probiotics at the same time, the antibiotics kill off the bad bacteria, but you are consistently replacing the good gut bacteria, so everything stays in check. Yogurt is the easiest way to do it, but if you don't like yogurt, there's other ways. So there you go. Oh yeah, I had the critical thinking weekly writing thing last week about probiotics, I think. So cool, good timing. Anyway, length of the digestive tract often correlates with the diet. Herbivores have a much longer one because it's trying to break it all down. And yep, I was just making sure I got that right because I'm sitting there seeing in my head lion, rabbit, and yeah, that's why. So name 2 advantages of a long canal in herbivores. Well, it can break all that stuff down. That's it. Plant material takes more effort to break it down because of the cellulose. The cellulose is there to hold it up. That's why I talked previously. Nope, that was in Bio 123. Bio 123, I talked about when you boil like collard greens and the breakdown and the seeping out of the nutrients, and so that's what this is. Dun, dun, dun. There we go. Oh look, it's not a lion and a rabbit. This time it's a coyote and a koala. So, but notice we have right here, that's where it's breaking down the meat that it eats and absorbing the nutrients, but then a little bit here to finish processing and get rid of it. Meanwhile, koala, look at all this. And then this, the cecum, that's to help break down the cellulose. Look at this for the koala. Huge cecum, and then still more. Now, what's really interesting, if you can stomach it, no pun intended, to look at it, if you ever watch a documentary, when you see a carnivore tear into its prey, notice it goes for the gut. It goes for the stomach and the intestines first. I don't mean it's eating, quote unquote, the poop chute, but it's eating all the digested food. And that is actually how the carnivore is getting a lot of the vitamins that it needs, is by eating the stuff that the herbivore already processed. And I always found that interesting because you don't tend to see, say, when a lion takes down a gazelle, it doesn't just sit there and start munching on its leg. A person eating a chicken tends to go for the leg or the wing. But if you look out in nature, a lion will go straight for the gut, the stomach area, the intestines, and once it eats that area, then it branches out and finishes the rest. I just find that interesting. So I used to watch all these types of documentaries like that, but now that I don't eat the meat, it really kind of makes me a little nauseous to watch it now. So don't watch it as much. Still watch it because I love documentaries. Anyway, here we go. Diet must provide the chemical energy your body needs. That's what the entire energy budget lab is about that we're doing on Monday. Metabolic rate is the rate of energy consumption, including your basal metabolic rate, your BMR, which we will calculate next week, as well as your activity, your digestion. Everything you do takes energy. Every last thing you do takes energy. And so you have to have enough calories consumed in order to do that energy. So there we go. What is the difference between metabolic rate and basal metabolic rate? Well, basal's the key phrase right there. The BMR is the minimum number that the resting animal needs to be alive. Metabolic rate, the regular one, is what you're using. So when we do the lab, we are going to figure out your bare minimum calories in order to keep your body functioning, because just to keep your heart beating takes energy. This is why people can starve to death. If somebody is not consuming enough calories, the body starts to shut down. There you go. And again, we're going to talk more about this in lab. So this is just trying to show you how many calories are in something and what kind of activity to burn it. Yeah, there you go. Essential. I talked about this earlier in this PowerPoint, and oh my gosh, it feels like this PowerPoint has gone on forever, and I think it kind of has. Anyway, essential means your body needs it, but it can't do it on its own. So you have to consume this somehow in order to make it in your body. So we have our essential fatty acids. This is to make the phospholipids for your cell membranes. If you remember from Bio 123, yes, I'm saying that again. Your cell membranes are from the phospholipid bilayer. You have the hydrophilic heads, the hydrophobic tails. They're like this. That's what makes up the membrane of every cell in your entire body. If you're not taking in the fat to make those phospholipids, you can't make the membranes for the cells. They get weaker. You can't make more. You're gone. So you have to take it in. I also refer to this as like the oil for your brain. Hopefully you remember that I used to be a mechanic. And if you didn't listen to my very first PowerPoint where I introduced myself, yes, I used to be a mechanic. So I like to use cars as an analogy, even though I fixed trucks. But cars are a good analogy because most people have had a car or have been in a car. Most people know you have to keep an eye on the oil, like you change the oil randomly and you shouldn't run your car dry. The reason being, there are so many moving parts in your engine. It's a combustion engine, and so you've got these poles that are going up and down, up and down, up and down, this metal. Well, metal rubbing on metal is going to get hot. The oil is there to grease it, to take down the friction, so then it can glide instead of grind, basically. So you put the oil in there and it's just and it runs beautifully. It runs exactly the way it's supposed to. The oil starts to get old, broken down. It starts to cause a little bit of friction. That causes tiny little pits. And it's still running, just not quite as well as it used to. But then say you keep not replacing the oil. It's getting thicker. It's not doing its job. Eventually, it's not doing its job at all. You throw a rod, your whole engine is gone. That's what happens. That's why you're supposed to make sure to keep an eye on your engine, on your oil levels. Make sure to change your oil and make sure to keep it filled where it's supposed to be. So those poles, those pieces can move fluidly. Same thing with the essential fatty acids and how your brain works. Your brain is firing off all this information. Your body is working constantly. The reason they used to say things like fish is brain food, I don't know if you ever heard that, but they used to say fish is brain food, and eggs are really good for your brain, and it's because of the essential fatty acids. So these fatty acids are helping grease your brain. It's making everything work. It's making everything fire properly. This is why if you have ever tried really hard to do a super low fat diet, after a little while, you get almost like that brain fog. It's because your body desperately needs that. So no, don't go eating a bunch of high fat items, but good fats. Salmon is one of the best things for you. I don't eat it, but if you eat fish, salmon is honestly one of the best things for your body. Like 100% one of the best things for you. Avocado. I do have avocado. Avocado, great, super high in the good fats. Olives, olive oil, great with the good fats. Things like that. So make sure you are getting in your essential fatty acids. Now, essential amino acids, these are proteins. Right there, we've got our eggs right there because we need these. Meats, eggs, milk, and cheese. You can find the essential amino acids in other things, but these are the main ones right here. No, it does not have to be an animal product to give you the essential amino acids. It's just this is the easiest to list. Milk and cheese tend to be higher in sodium and a couple of other things. So if you have kidney issues, you're supposed to avoid them. Dun, dun, dun. Look carefully at figure 21.15a. I don't know why I wanted to say that, I just did. Anyway, a diet consisting strictly of corn. So, just the corn. This is what is in the corn. This is what's in the beans. So, a diet consisting of just corn would result in a deficiency of which type of amino acid? Boop. Tryptophan and lysine, because these are found in the beans. Now, tryptophan I talked about originally when you first covered amino acids. Tryptophan is actually found in a lot of meats. It's high in turkey, and I like to use this as the example for people when we cover it. And I talk about Thanksgiving coming around, and a lot of people eat a buttload of turkey, and then they're like, oh, I'm so tired. The tryptophan's actually what makes you sleepy. You can obviously get tryptophan in other things, since we just saw here that it's in beans. But it's very highly concentrated in the turkey, and the tryptophan is actually part of what makes you sleepy. So I think that's interesting. There's a product at a lot of health food places called Calm's Forte. I used to give it to my youngest, and until it just didn't work for him anymore. We used to call it the chill pills because it had tryptophan, melatonin, and valerian. And those three together is supposed to help calm you, relax you, help you sleep. All right, vitamin is an organic molecule required in very small amounts in your diet. Most of these will function as coenzymes. So the vitamins are helping things work properly in your body. That's why you need to have the proper vitamins. Minerals are inorganic nutrients. These are required in small amounts, and again, they also help things work in your body. A varied diet usually meets the recommended dietary allowances for these nutrients. That means you do not normally have to take a pill for any of these. If you actually have an even remotely healthy diet, you're already getting these. People who spend a lot of money on the multivitamins, it really is just a market to take your money. I know people will swear by it, but honestly, your body, if you are even having a semi-balanced diet, you're already getting what you need with vitamins and minerals. Now, if you eat nothing but hot dogs, that's a totally different thing. So, here you go. I am not going to read all of these because, holy crap, there's a bunch of these. We cover them a little bit in lab also. But you have a whole bunch of vitamins, where you get them, and interesting facts about them. Now, what's very interesting, what I think people need to look at more, is the amount of things that you consume. And if you see what is good for you and bad for you, that's the important thing. Because some stuff, if you have too much of, it's really, really bad. So these are all these things. Here's our minerals, talking about those. Look, here we go. This is one. Table salt, sodium. Required for proper water balance. Average American eats enough salt to provide about 20 times the required amount. And overconsumption tends to be associated with high blood pressure and some forms of cancer. So you need salt, but you don't need too much salt. So these are good to read on here. Yeah. I was going to try to read a couple more, but no. These are good to go over because some stuff people will have an overabundance of, thinking, oh, well, more is better, but then it turns out that it's very detrimental to overdo it. And this happens a lot when people think that they know how to keep from getting sick, and they do an overabundance of vitamin C or zinc, or they're like, oh, I feel a little rough, and then they take all those airborne products, or Emergen-C. If you take in more than your body can handle, it doesn't help. It really, really does not. It is a myth. What they have actually discovered is people who do that massive overload of vitamin C and those products, thinking they're making themselves healthier, actually end up getting sick more, because their body kicks into overdrive trying to process it. Then you're basically peeing out all the extra vitamin C, because your body can only absorb so much. So you're peeing out the rest, but your body's speeding up trying to get rid of all this excess. Your liver is working over trying to get rid of this excess. You end up overtaxing your entire body, and then you bring your immune system down, because while it's trying to kick all that stuff out faster, it's accidentally kicking out other stuff. So making sure you have enough vitamin C, yes. Do you ever in your life need 500 to 1,000 times more what you're supposed to have? No. So please don't fall for that. Just save your money and eat healthy. Have an orange instead of, spending $5 for a product to have the equivalent of a bag of oranges, that kind of thing. Now, food labels. I talked briefly about this in class, and you should be paying attention to this for doing your homework. Food labels indicate serving size, calories per serving, amounts of selected nutrients per serving, percentage of daily value, and recommendations. So when you look at it, and I think there's an example coming up. Yes, when you look at it, there's two different ways. This one is the old way. This is the new way. It used to be just nice and very simple. It's for the most part, but here they kind of made things bigger and in bold, because they know that the average American is not going to really read anyway. So the main thing to take here is serving size is 2/3 of a cup or 55 grams. I have kitchen scales and I have measuring cups. So when I try to track stuff, I will literally measure and weigh everything. Now, this is letting us know calories per serving, 230 calories for 2/3 of a cup. Notice this is telling you that there are 72 calories from fat. That's breaking it down. Now, we have 8 grams of fat, 1 gram of saturated fat. Saturated's the bad fat. 0 grams of trans fats. Yay, because trans fats are the worst. However, if there's only 1 gram of saturated fat, that means you have 7 grams of the other fat. So that's a way to keep track of it. Cholesterol, sodium, carbs, total carbs, 37 grams. Notice it's going to break down our sugars as well. Fiber is a carbohydrate, but fiber is good for you. So you don't want to clear out all your carbs, because you want your fibers. And then it breaks down our vitamins. This one, notice 45% of your daily allowance for iron, assuming you are a 2,000 calorie a day. That's the other big thing. If you are only eating 1,200 calories a day, then it's going to be higher than 45%. If you are a massive athlete, why can I not remember the word athlete? If you're a massive athlete and you are consuming way more than 2,000 because of how much you're burning, this would be less than 45%. Does that make sense? But anyway, the percentage is based on the amount of calories you're consuming in a day. However, average person somewhere around 2 grand. So iron 45%. That means if you have 3 servings of this, then you have already well exceeded the amount of iron you should have in a day. So that's something to keep track of. Malnutrition, a diet insufficient in nutrients or calories, can cause significant health problems. Protein deficiency is the most common cause of malnutrition worldwide. That's mine. I have the hardest time consuming enough protein, and I know that it's because, again, vegetarian. If I'm not eating animals, yes, that's the easiest way to get protein. I have consistently been told I need more protein, and I keep trying different ways to get in more protein. I'm not willing to eat the meat, and so I'm constantly trying different ways because I know I need more protein. And if I could consume the proper amount of protein every day, I would be a much, much, much healthier person, and I know this. But knowing something and successfully doing it, totally different things. So, does malnutrition always result from lack of access to food? Nope, not at all. If you have any kind of eating disorder, that can cause malnutrition. Somebody who just doesn't understand what to eat can cause malnutrition. We talked about, I'm pretty sure it was this class, we talked about my 600-pound life. A lot of times those people, as huge as they are still having health issues due to malnutrition because they are just eating so much of this type of food and not that. So anybody who eats almost all meat and almost never has vegetables, you're malnourished. You are missing a lot. That is why you are supposed to have a balanced diet. It's not because your parents are telling you to eat some broccoli, which, by the way, you totally should. Broccoli is like one of the best foods on the planet. That's my favorite. I love broccoli. Anyway, it's because meat gives you the protein, but it does not have all this other stuff. And so you could be extremely rich. You can be eating a steak dinner every friggin' night and feel like you are just the epitome of perfection. But if you are not also consuming something with the other nutrients, the minerals, the vitamins, the essential fatty acids, you could still be malnourished and things will start shutting down. Purposely kept this in because when you see pictures like this, most people, when they see the kid with the big belly, they think, oh, look, he's got a nice full belly. But in reality, this is protein deficiency. The body is having a hard time. It can't break things down because it doesn't have the protein to do what it needs to do. And so this is actually a sign of a child in severe, severe distress. It's bad. This is why if you ever see those commercials about the starving children and can you help them, and they all have these big bellies and you're like, how are they starving? This is how, right here. Obesity. Started off this whole thing talking about it. I pointed out I am on this scale. This is a too high body mass index, BMI. It's linked to a lack of exercise, abundance of fattening foods, and may partly stem from an evolutionary advantage of fat hoarding. There's a reason why people make comments about in the winter you bulk up. It's because if you have more fat on your body, you're kept warmer. It's packed around your organs to protect your organs so you can weather the cold better. That is why in the evolutionary realm, the people who were farther from the equator tended to be shorter and stouter. They tended to be fatter because they needed the fat to protect them from the cold. Meanwhile, closer to the equator, you tended to be taller and slimmer because if you are in an area that's very hot, you didn't need the extra fat to keep you warm. Also, during times of no food, by storing the excess fat, the body was able to pull from that fat for the calories to run and to keep the body going until the next bit of food. And so areas that went like this through plenty of food, no food, plenty of food, no food, those people tended to have different areas of their body that held on to more fat. And that is why more women than men tend to have a little more fat. Like think woman, we've got the hourglass because you've got the boobs, you've got the hips. And that's because the woman's body has to hold more energy in order to reproduce, because the woman's body is the one taking care of the actual baby growing. And then she also had to be able to produce milk in order to feed the children. So she needed to have more energy store built in. And so that's why women have the higher fat content. Kind of interesting. But obesity, where it's talking about lack of exercise and abundance of fattening foods, also that whole malnutrition thing, because your body wants desperately to stay alive. And so if it's not getting in what it needs, it's going to stack on a little bit of fat in order to hold on to the next time. And we talk all about that during our lab on Monday as well. So here's the body mass index. So here means you are underweight. So if you are, let's see, my mother, 5'5", and she is currently hovering right in this area. She is definitely underweight. And we could tell because I've been lecturing her about nutrition. I have actually printed out a chart of you need this, 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 and I have like the different vitamins, the proteins, the minerals like phosphorus, because she's in stage 3 kidney disease, and so we're tracking everything. But then I also put calories because she had gotten so thin you could see the bones of her sternum. So she's starting to put a little bit of weight. We're inching her towards normal. This is the normal range. So this means that you have enough body fat to keep your body nice and healthy, but not too much to have the health issues. Then we have overweight. The average American tends to be in the overweight category and then falling over into the obese category. Now, when you think obese, most people are thinking my 600-pound life. My 600-pound life will be past extremely obese, because we have underweight, normal, overweight, obese, extremely obese, and then we have morbidly obese. Morbidly is the 600-pound life people. Extremely is here. And thankfully I have never been in the extremely obese category. Yay! I'm so proud of myself. But yes, I fall right here in the obese category. I know it. I own it. I'm trying to get down to the overweight category so then maybe I can get to the normal. When I was a kid, I was in the normal to the underweight. So I've been slowly going up. I don't want to hit this category, so I'm trying to go back this way. But we'll talk about that on Monday too. So, evolution connection. Human health problem of obesity may reflect our evolutionary past. Again, this has to do with, the way the food would come in. We have a hormone called leptin. This is produced by your fat cells, the adipose tissue, and this helps suppress the appetite. So when the body kicks out this hormone, it's saying, oh, you're not hungry. You're fine. You're fine. And so what they discovered, mice that inherited a deficit for this gene became obese. So when their body was not producing this hormone, they constantly felt hungry, so they kept eating. Obese children who have inherited a mutant form of this gene lose weight after they give them it. So basically, children who were born with a deficiency of this hormone, once they were treated by being given the hormone, they stopped overeating. So there you go. But that's not common. Most people who are obese, it's not because of a hormone imbalance. It's normally bad habits, bad nutrition, lack of exercise. A lot of it's totally just based on your own personal choices and your upbringing. So, in what 2 ways does the hormone leptin regulate appetite? We just talked about that. And in which of these ways does leptin apparently not function in obese humans? Yeah, we just talked about this. So, a drop in leptin due to a loss of adipose tissue will stimulate appetite. So, when you're getting thinner, it tends to make you hungrier because you don't have as much fat saying, don't eat. And then a high level of leptin produced by increased body fat depresses the appetite. So again, leptin is supposed to be the fatter you are, the less hungry you are, that kind of thing. Now, the other thing is, it doesn't seem to be a lack of leptin that's causing people to overeat. And this I need to point out because anyone who's ever been up late at night and you've seen the goofy infomercials, there are so many about this will help you lose weight. Have you been struggling to lose weight? Just take this pill. It's proven because you see, and then they show you all these scientific things. This is one of the things that they're pushing. They tell you to just take this pill and it has this hormone that makes you not hungry. That's true. However, most people, most Americans anyway, that overeat, it's not because they're hungry that they're overeating. It's out of boredom. It's out of habit. It's because it stimulates a spot in your brain that is like the reward center. And so taking something that's going to trigger your body to let you know you're not hungry isn't going to help for any of those reasons. If you're just eating because you like to eat, it's not going to help. So it's not a weight loss drug. It's a if you had the imbalance thing, but then a doctor would be able to tell you that. This relates to diet, health characteristics and populations, and controlled experiments can be used to identify effects of specific diet plans. So where it talks about scientists being able to have methods to treat weight loss claims, yeah, it's just if the issue is a lot of the infomercials sound scientific, but they're not really scientific. And so be very careful. This also happens when you talk about vaccines, when you talk about medication. It's currently happening in our political system where groups are taking this much information. It's called cherry picking, but they're taking this much actual information and then displaying it in a different way. So the core, the little kernel is true, but how they're putting it out is not actually how it works. So you have to be careful. So seriously, if you see something and you're like, oh, is that real? Research it or ask me and I will help you research it. Because, wow, the manipulation strategies that are out there to make people believe what they want you to believe. And when I say they, I'm not meaning anyone in particular. I'm just saying whatever group is showing it. It's a little terrifying, and I would rather you actually be able to understand it. And I will happily go over fallacies, like logical fallacies, if you want. That's my other bachelor's degree is philosophy and religious studies, and I actually studied logic and argumentation and fallacies and stuff like that. And I'm currently doing another course in that because I find it fascinating. But anyway, there you go. Study published in 2011 measured the body mass index of 4,451 healthy Canadian adults and tracked their diet through daily self-reporting. So the people just had to calculate, similar to what we're going to do for our lab. Results indicated that the more carbohydrates consumed, the lower the risk of obesity. And they were like, huh, what? Because you've been told cut the carbs in order to lose weight. So what they did here is they ranked these people by the amount of carbohydrates consumed. So the bottom fourth, the bottom fourth for the amount of carbs were in the 65% overweight. Meanwhile, over here, the top half, the half of the people who ate the most carbs were both 51% overweight. So that actually ends up being better, but then look at the calorie counts. And so you have to look at that as well. So there's a lot. However, 2009, remember the other one was 2011, 2009 study, they assigned 811 over one. What is going on? I've been talking too long. 811 overweight adults to one of 4 diets. After 2 years, the total weight loss was recorded and comparisons between the diets were made. So this is what they had. They had high protein, low protein, high fat, low fat, high carb, low carb. So here, weight loss after 2 years, the lower carb actually was better than the high carb. But notice the low fat and the high fat, very small change. Protein is a big one. So here we go. What this showed was members of every group lost a moderate amount of weight over the 2-year trial. Second, every group lost a similar amount of weight. So this suggests that cutting of calories is what actually results in the weight loss, not whether you're cutting carbs, fats, or proteins, or eating more of one kind of food. That's pretty much what it boils down to, is it is the counting the calories. And that's one of the things I tend to talk about in class a lot, because you have people who say, I heard the keto diet is great for this. I heard the Atkinson's diet is great for this. I heard this. I heard this. In reality, if you look at any of these diets, any of them at all, take a look. Every one of them has you counting calories. Every one of them. And counting calories alone isn't helping you lose the weight. It's just making you more aware of what choices you're making. Because if you tell yourself, I am only allowed to have 1,200 calories today, and you are calculating your food, you're going to quickly realize that this choice, you can have this much for those calories, or you can have this much for those calories. You're like, I don't want to be hungry, so you make this choice. So you're eating more food for less calories, which then ends up being the healthier choice. So it's really just training you to make better choices. That's it. The keto diet was designed for very short term. It's not healthy long term. Short term, yes. Long term, no. There used to be a thing called the grapefruit diet where they had you consuming a lot of grapefruits. Did people lose weight with it right off the bat? Yeah, because it was a big change. Long term, not healthy. None of those quick diets are good long term. It's just to make you pay attention to your calories and make better choices. That's it. All right, we have 2 main types of cholesterol that occur in our blood. We have the LDLs and the HDLs. So low density lipoproteins and high density lipoproteins. So the LDL correlates with a tendency to develop blocked blood vessels, high blood pressure, and heart attacks. So when you get your cholesterol checked, your LDL, you want to be low, because you do not want your veins and arteries to be clogged up. There you go. High density. This may decrease the risk of vessel blockage, perhaps because HDLs convey excess cholesterol to the liver where it's broken down. You need both in your body. The ratio is key, but you don't want to, again, you don't want to cut out all fats. You don't want all of the DLs gone, because you need some of this in your body. This is where you get to the good fat, bad fat kind of thing. The relationship between food and health is extremely complex. And so when somebody oversimplifies it, be warned, because you do need a little bit of everything. You have to be active. You have to eat properly. You can't cut any of these things completely out of your body, because your body needs all of it. So the best thing you can do is maintain a healthy weight throughout your life. But if you're like me, you've gone through a chunk of your life and right now you're not at the healthy weight and you're trying to fix it. So if you're not at the healthy weight, work on getting towards the healthy weight. Start making better choices for certain things. Eat 5 or more servings of a variety of fruits and vegetables daily. Even if you don't like fruits and vegetables, just try different things. There are some really good things out there. Do not douse them in butter to make it happen though, please. So many different types of things out there. Fruits and vegetables, one of the absolute best things for you, because it's going to give you a lot of the nutrients you need. As much as I love broccoli, I don't eat only broccoli every day. That would not be healthy. Broccoli each day is okay, but not only broccoli every day. And no, I don't eat broccoli every single day, because even I can go, I'm just not in the mood today, but I do eat a lot. I used to say I'm a broccolic because I would say, oh, you know what, this is really good, but you know what would make it better? And then anyone who knows me goes, broccoli. And I'm like, yeah, broccoli. Don't know why. I friggin' love broccoli. Anyway, choose whole grains over processed grains. So instead of white bread, get wheat bread, that kind of thing. Limit consumption of processed and red meats. Red meats are not good for you. Straight up, I don't care how much you like it. It is not healthy. These are some of the highest bad fat foods you can eat. It's also not good for the environment because cattle are one of the #1 reasons we have issues on this planet. I'm not saying cows are bad. I'm saying having as many cattle as we have for people to eat is not healthy. But this is not environmental science. That will be next quarter. I get to teach it next quarter. Processed, overly processed foods, we know they're not healthy for you. There's a reason they're processed. Okay, if you drink alcohol, limit yourself to a maximum of only 1 or 2 a day. Because alcohol, not healthy for you. It's breaking things down in a way. I'm not going to tell you don't ever drink, but it's best if you don't drink all the time. So, yes, I totally added the word yummy because I love these foods. I pretty much, that's a mushroom. I don't eat that because I'm allergic. Other than that, I eat all of this. I love my fruits and veggies, and I love peppers. Peppers are wonderful. So there you go. We are now done with this really long chapter. So la 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 la, la 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 la. Why am I doing that? I don't know, because I have no idea what else to say. So that's it for our nutrition. Again, we're going to talk so much more about a lot of this when we do our lab on Monday, and I can't wait. So hopefully you are collecting your information, you are measuring your food, you're writing it all down, you're breaking it down, putting all your calories down. You only need to keep track of your calories for our lab, so just make sure you're getting all your calories and you're keeping track of all of your activities, because on Monday we are going to look at the amount of calories you've taken in over 3 days, and we're going to look at how much energy you expend in 3 days, as well as your basal metabolic rate and the amount of energy needed just for digesting and stuff. We are going to do all of that on Monday, so bring a calculator. That will be helpful. That is it, and now I'm going to take a brief break before I start up on the very next chapter, so peace out.